So what is natural understanding? Well, I think most of you by now will have used Siri or Alexa or Google Assistant, asked for them what the weather is and got a reply. So natural understanding is that part of natural language processing. It's about understanding your text or words. So the words are ingested, they're structured and formatted so the program can understand them. Some algorithms applied to get the response, and that is then put back in the form of a human voice or whatever. Now, if you're like me, you can quickly test the limits of how much like Alexa or Siri or Google Assistant knows in the percent of its vocabulary. So there's got a defined application. So what we're interested in talking about today is a much broader language and a much broader semantic landscape. So I think it's pretty, talked about a lot about the fact that agencies consume and use and produce a huge amount of unstructured data. It's all part of the daily work of government, really, at all levels of government. Now, much of this data, is in file shares or in document management systems, and it's sort of all over the place in terms of being able to find it and make use of it, and to determine it for sort of records management or other sort of processes, what to do with it. So there's another part of this, though, which my interest is in how we build, applications. So a lot of the focus today is on building applications to solve business problems, and these sort of applications are based on, taking unstructured data and firms to a form of information, setting aside digital or data from the devices and things like that. But we take unstructured data, we enter it into a system, and so we make it usable and findable and discoverable in a system. So the challenge is that how much data we put in is constrained by the time, the budget and the requirements of business and things like that. And so we have a situation where we might create a customer database for council, and that database system might have a screen where you can enter a complaint received from a customer, and so complaint type and a brief comment. So you might have a comment saying complained about a dog, and that's about it. But on the somewhere else in the organisation, there's a transcript of that conversation, and that conversation might have been explaining that the school bus is always late, the school kids are kicking down the old wooden fence of this council house where a 90-year-old woman lives, and the dog is escaping and running across the road. So that information is currently not available in detail. So really, in my view, into the future, what we need to do is turn the perception around. If we can make all data accessible, then applications become much more about just master data management and dealing with the particular calculations and other sort of problems. But all the ancillary reference data and everything else is available through a query in natural language. So if we sort of achieve this, then we'd be a long way forward in sort of knowledge discovery, finding information, understanding information, connecting with external sources and things like that. And we'd also have a much better idea about, a much better position about intelligent process automation. Now, all communication, why we have so much unstructured data, or why we use unstructured data, is because it's the medium for communication. And so it's a way we actually talk to each other and explain each other. We put it in written form to record it and things like that. So at the moment, information workers struggle to find information. It's very time-consuming, reading long documents, and information is hard to find and not available in a timely manner. So if we were to, make all data accessible, and we could then start to look at these sort of types of use cases within government. Now, the ones that I've listed here are ones that I've found that have been already implemented in Europe and the US. So these are already out of the box, implemented things. That's in the public sector, back office automation, looking compliance and regulation documents, and search them and matching documents to see if they're complete and accurate. Digital experience in terms of chatbots and things like that, and intelligent process automation. And on the defense and intelligence side, there's open source intelligence, which is looking at multiple source intelligence for insights, cybersecurity, content enrichment, so taking the police records and extracting out the information and loading that into common databases, etc., etc. So there's a lot of use cases in government. So the challenge about understanding language is the words, and the fact that, in language, in all the languages, Italian, French, or whatever, we use the same spelling of a word in different meanings and different contexts. So you have here a little sentence that says, the governor pen gave Peter a pen and asked him to pen a story about a flightless pen. So this thing, to actually quickly understand that sentence, you have to know that a pen is a female swan, the writing implement is a pen, and to pen is to write a document. It is something which has to be, it's something we learn at school over time, and learn in great detail. And it's very hard to mimic and produce statistically. So the second complex part about language is that we can take a simple sentence like this one up here: officers in Heathrow recently seized heroin packed in the shells of Mitre. And we can say, oh yes, Heathrow is an airport, it's an international airport, it's in London, London's in England and in the United Kingdom. Heroin's a hard drug, there's all sorts of chemicals involved in it. And we can say, oh yeah, Mitre, that's a snail. It's a long sort of snail, it's a mollusk and things like that. So we can apply all this external information to that sentence to enrich it, to make it understandable. So, to actually get a human understanding to the depth of a human can, you need these, to have this relationship sorted. So a few years ago, I got sort of interested in this business of trying to understand unstructured data. There's an agency I was working with who was asking about integrating structured and unstructured data. And I really didn't know what the solution was. So I did some research, and so it was going to be a complicated process because there's lots of solutions out there. Hundreds of different sort of companies coming up with different solutions around natural language processing. And unfortunately, I'm not a statistician. I'm not much of a linguist, and I've got dyslexia. So I thought it was going to be a bit of a challenge. But fortunately, a Dharma person in the US put me onto a company, what's called Expert System, which renamed to expert.ai. So expert.ai is probably one of the oldest AI companies in the world. It goes back over 20 years. And it is today about in terms of revenue, about the largest company, AI company in Europe. So what they've done over that time is actually to build a semantic network of words and nouns and things like that, and connect those words to the different meanings of things. So there's millions of concepts, tens of millions of 6 million relationships, and there's an advanced rule-based and semantic processing goes on to assign, and understand your relationships. And the other part of what they've done, they have a very deep disambiguation text algorithms to actually nail down the meaning of each word and get it right in the context. And it's available in 14 languages at the moment. So expert.ai is validated by Forrester and Gartner. It's in the sort of top 9 or 10 text analytics and insight engines, and it's extensively used in Europe and America. So what I thought now is I'll give you a quick demonstration of expert.ai and just show you the basic technology that comes with it. Okay, now we begin. So this is the expert.ai sort of technology demonstrator. Expert.ai works in sort of background, and basically you just pass it text, and then it passes back the classifications and the tagging for that text. So it can work as an API, as it is here, or it can work as a standalone black box behind a DNZ. So I'll just process this sentence here. So the first step is, you can see here how expert.ai looks at each word and assigns the correct, the type to the word. So whether it's a verb, a noun, an article or preposition or whatever. And then it also looks at groups of words. So it works out that the government is a pronoun, for example. It works out that there's a group of words. A flightless pen is a group of words. So if you look at each of the words pen, you see here it's quickly assigned that the pen is talking about administrative place. Here the pen is a pencil. Here the word pen is a verb, to compose or to write. And the flightless pen is a female swan. So I'll go back now and I'll use the other sentence and go into this in a bit more detail. So the other sentence was, officer at Heathrow recently seized heroin packed in shells of mitter. So again, if we go and look at the individual text, here you can see it's correctly identified Heathrow as an airport. So Heathrow Airport is an airport, and it's an international airport. If you look at the geography relating to that, we can see that Heathrow is in Greater London in the United Kingdom. We take the word heroin. Heroin is classified as a hard drug, comes under hard drugs. So there's heroin, different sort of names of sugar. There's multiple different types of drugs. So here listed all the sort of other sort of drugs, like recreational drugs, gear, opium, speedball, whatever. These are chemical substances. So here are all the different sort of chemical substances within the Scrappo, and you can see it's very comprehensive, the list of all the different substances. If you then look at mitter, word mitter. Mitter is a snail, which is part of it could be which is part of a family, which is the garden snails, scorpion snails. It's a gastropod. And so here with all the classifications of gastropods and words used, which is a mollusk, which is invertebrate, and whatever. So you can see there's a chain here of network of connecting the different words and their meaning and how to group them and categorize them. So if we could do that, then we can classify this sentence against standard taxonomies. So here's the first one, is a media taxonomy. And so it's classified this sentence here as about gang activity and animals. And then go to the crime taxonomy. You can see it's classified it as the sentence is about seizures and confiscations. And lastly, if we try the intelligence taxonomy, it's also classified as gang activity, illicit drugs and controlled substances, and air transportation. So you can see this very simple sentence has been classified in multiple different ways, depending on the taxonomy and the particular requirements of the business, what they want to do. So other parts of how Cogito works is to understand all of that. It builds expert.ai builds a semantic sort of knowledge map, and so you can then look at the components of the knowledge map. So it talks about heroin was packed in a shell, and the shell was a mitter. The officer recently seized at Heathrow heroin. So basically, it breaks it down into triplets, which is subject action oriented, which is sort of like the fundamentals we learn at preschool about the English language. So the officer seized an object, which recently heroin at Heathrow Airport. So you can see if you get a really deep understanding of text, it opens up the potential to do all sorts of human-like reading and interpretation of documents and things like that in terms of understanding. So now what I'll show you is what happens if you get a whole do a whole article. So there's an article in the BBC today about Google. So what I'll do now is I'll process this article, and then we could talk about what it looks like when you do an article. So here is the cognitive map of the article. So this is all the terms found in the article and broken down in groups to grouping. So there's one here about products, which is talking about Android operating system and Google Chrome. There's mass media, Google, Twitter, Associated Press. There's different companies. There's Google. There's people, Donald Trump. There's person, non-physical characteristics, so they're critical, they're consumer, alternative. So all these words you can see it's a semantic map of what the document's really about. In terms of the sort of relationships, we can see here that we could go again. We can look down into the detail. What's Donald Trump got to say? Well, he speaks about it at a rally. He's accused Google of search engine bias, and he's promised to do something. So we can see, in great detail how it can understand what the document's about. We can also then look at the categorization. So if we cover with the intelligence thing here, so it's broken it down. The intelligence one says it's 50% about politics, it's about software companies, litigation, the government departments, judiciary, and things like this. So these are all the different things that are being tagged against it. So you could search, say, for software companies, and where it talks about government departments and things like that. And again, if we choose like a media topic, you can see that it's talking about legal activity, it's about information and computing technology, it's talking about head of state, which is Trump, presidency, and it's got national government, so just Department of Justice, federal government, another US government, and things like that. So of course, what it also does is extract all the administrative places. So if you think about what I was talking about beforehand, if the data here is actually, like if we use Wikipedia as the master data source that you build, well, Donald Trump was already there, but anyway, you can see the flags and a picture of Donald Trump and the logo for the Department of Justice have been brought in from a master data thing, which in this case is Wikipedia. So you can integrate the data. So if you're going to do that to a document, now let's go and look at what you could do with a group of documents. So this is the Cogito Intelligence platform. So this platform is a standard sort of platform for looking at large quantities of documents. And this one has been tailored to look for sources relating to intelligence and using intelligent taxonomies. So you can see that it's ingesting documents in real time. So there's 670 in the last 24 hours, for about 9,007 days. So here, you can see up here, there's 161,000 sort of documents. You can see that these documents coming from 5 different languages, so we can turn off German and Italian. You can see here the sources of the data. So there's nearly 300 data sources and data flows that are being used. So it's a very wide range of documents, and these are the results in the last that have come from those sort of sources. So here the documents, we can now start to select, where we want to look at. So we can select a topic, so we can select something like, say, critical infrastructures. We can then select a crime taxonomy. It's like cyber security. We can then say, well, what's the main things people are talking about crime and cybersecurity today? And so they might say something around sort of hackers. I can't see the name, but let's say hacker there. So here are all the documents it's found related to hackers, and you can see if you click on here, you can look at the text of the document, and you can look at sort of the taxonomy and where it talks about the where it's decided around hackers, and where it mentions hackers and things like that. And you can also select around what are the organizations being talked about in this document here. And if you want to look at the original source, you can click on it. And it goes to the source, which is, this is a search security magazine here, news article on the hackers. So this provides a great deal of flexibility for somebody who wants to do searches and to do deep analysis into open and complex documents. It also, there's a capability to do analytics, do case management, so you can set up a case. I set one up earlier today for Scott Morrison. He hasn't been mentioned yet. And then you can set up a case. So a case can be shared with people to work on, and targets is particular things you're targeting to get information about. So in this case, I set up something for Rio Tinto, who also hasn't had any alerts. But anyway, so that's the Cogito Intelligence Platform. So expert.ai's capability to understand all data with great accuracy has meant that it has a large sort of number of use cases across, again, America, Europe, and the Middle East. And you can see it's primarily in sort of industry groups who are dealing with a large amount of information, so large organizations, large amounts of information, and having to deal with complex information problems. So there's the government, media and publishing, oil and gas, and banking, insurance, and things like that. So as expert.ai works at the data level in understanding all data and to a high degree of accuracy, it can integrate with any sort of other technology. So with plenty of use cases around Microsoft SharePoint, use of the UiPath, automated everywhere, things like MarkLogic or Denodo also. So a lot of technologies can use and be enriched by using expert.ai. So you could try expert.ai for free. Most of the companies who we put on the last of the screen came to use expert.ai because they've been trying other techniques and they hadn't got the level of accuracy required. And there used to be a sort of a proof of concept where you give us 50 documents that you think you've got the most out of, and we'll show you what we can do. Well, you can now try it for yourself, and you can register on expert.ai and register to be a developer and develop your own application. So the release, this is only in sort of beta release at the moment. It will be in a major release in March. So just to summarize, what to look for. If we're going to understand all the data in an organization and make it accessible and for multiple use cases, then it needs to be accurate and understandable. It needs to correctly identify, the words and the meaning of each word in context. It also needs to be explainable. So expert.ai does not require you to train documents or anything like that. It's all code-based, based on use of the sensor graph and the semantic network. So it's entirely repeatable, and you can extend it and make it more accurate with linguistic projects. And it's also adaptable, so it can be used in multiple different applications. It enables to grow more data sources, and there's multiple technology partners, as I mentioned. Okay, thank you for attending. It was only a brief overview of natural language understanding. Quite happy to talk more about this and more about what happens if you make all potential really to change your whole sort of IT environment by making data more actionable. We can also talk about specific use cases about what's happening around the world and what are they currently doing. So please come and visit us at our virtual booth or contact me if you'd like to find out more. So thank you very much. Bye.